one of the most interesting and new original issues when you go that will be focused on. To sum up, he assumes that psychopathology derives from actual past experiences, actual, real, not from fantasies, and stresses the therapeutic relevance of the real relationship between patient and therapist. The role of the therapist is to provide a condition in which a patient can explore his internal working models and restructure them with the new secure relationship with the therapist. But Bowlby theory is almost exclusively centered in the attachment system and only peripherally on other systems. This is the motivation theory that I mentioned before. For instance, care, exploration, sexuality, rank, and etc. There's an interesting point in Mitchell's attempt in one of his last books, maybe it's the last book on relationality, to include Bowlby's theory as one step in his general theory about relationship. Both from a cognitive evolutionary perspective and from a psychodynamics perspective, essentially Lichtenberg, there have been very good attempts to formulate evolutionary-based clinical theories of normal and pathological functioning in which attachment and other motivational systems, and especially what I quoted just a moment ago, Steve Mitchell, play a crucial role together with relevant developmental experiences. But the theory of psychotherapy technique, based on these theoretical proposals, are not empirically supported. Another theory that is compatible with attachment theory but whose clinical indication are empirically supported is control mastery theory. We agree with this. Given the different elements of compatibility between compatibility, here is the main word, between attachment theory and CMT, we think that a dialogue between these two theoretical frameworks may be possible and clinically useful. And for instance, also with the schema that the poet proposed before. Centrality of real relational experiences, where I emphasize real, the concept of adaptation and safety, the importance of pro-social motivation, he mentioned them, and internal cognitive affective structures such as working models and schemas. Pro-social motivation is another trend we started studying. For instance, Cortina's writings about pro-social motivation as something different, but we needed our interest was the following. Could we be able to supply, not out of our minds, not originally, a sort of developmental childhood theory that CMT really lacks, because it doesn't have developmental. And can we provide also a sort of pro-social and moral developmental theory so that we can focus better on why the guilt, the interpersonal guilt, and all the kinds of guilts that are explored by the CMT came out. Because we know there are guilts, several kinds of guilts. We don't know really when they develop, how they develop, and so on. So this is a very ambitious task, because we're trying to collect materials to have a frame, and to say, look, this is a general frame, we're going gradually to fill it up, and you have to recognize that this is an articulated and almost complete theory. So it's your problem if you don't want to recognize it or to acknowledge it, like a psychoanalyst actually do. They tell us at least. The necessity to modify via the patient-therapist relationship the patient's procedural relational knowledge. Centrality of real relational experience. polytraumatic environments, development of multiple and often contradictory representation, obstacle to the goals of multiple motivational systems. Here there are two things, maybe three. The trauma, the development of multiple and often contradictory representation that's studied by the attachment theory, especially when it focuses on disorganized attachments, and obstacle to the goals of multiple motivational systems, that motivation aspect that there is not in the theory, the original attachment theory. Concepts of adaptation and safety are basic concepts of attachment. Organized and disorganized attachment can be understood as conditional strategies that the child develops to adapt to the environment. The conditional strategy is a concept drawn from ethology. The conditional strategies of organized attachment correspond to relatively stable patterns of behavior in response to relatively stable maternal sensitivity. The conditional strategies of the disorganized stable attachment reflect the child's contradictory experiences with his or her caregiver that are simultaneously sources of danger and safety. So there's a contradiction that cannot be solved. This is the other branch. The importance of prosocial motivation and internal cognitive affective structure. Human beings are wired to adapt to a specific social environment and share a set of evolutionary-based emotions and motivations that are shaped during the first years of life by what they actually experience in their environment. These experiences are encoded in cognitive emotional structures, schemas, that mediate the influence of these motivations on perceptions, emotions, cognitions, and behavior. So that's the old idea of Bowlby of internal working models. We haven't gone very far with this concept of internal working model. It has to be defined and deepened, redefined and deepened. The core of disorganized attachment can be thought as the manifestation of contradictions, procedural internal working models connected to different and segregated or dissociated behavioral systems and developed for adapting to a contradictory and unstable relational world. The necessity to modify the adaptation therapy relationship, the patient procedural relational knowledge, that was the last point. This internal working models resemble, I think just resemble, not overlap. Representation of interaction generalized, the famous RIG concept of Stern. Even if internal working models originate as implicit memory structures, they may, over the course of development, become explicit and be translated into narratives of autobiographical memory and generalized explicit beliefs about the self and other people. The patient's use of a therapeutic relationship to modify procedural relational knowledge and psychotherapeutic change often requires a relational modification of the procedural knowledge itself. Conclusions. I should say, like the colleague said before, there are more overlappings than differences. The theory, though, is different. So there's no real talk of integration. Maybe we could consider it the value of the theory as we frequently repeat as a meta-level theory, research, because it's not bound to any specific theory, but can be an overarching theory of clinical intervention of every other theory. Now, the main trend in various training schools, especially cognitive psychotherapy, has to develop protocols. Protocols, I think, are in contradictions in the sense with the best feature of the CMT that changes regarding the situation, in relation to the situation, in relation to the problems, and so on. And so, what I always object to Francesco is how can you be sure that this theory works also with patients that are very problematic and very severe. And he probably says, well, you're a theorist, look at what you're doing, and you'll see that the theory works. But we have a dream, maybe we'll achieve something, to see if there are specificities in intervening on this kind of more severe patients in respect to normal patients, if I can use this word, normal patients. What is the conclusion of this brief talk? Attachment theory and research may help CMT authors develop more empirically grounded hypotheses about how specific caregiver-child relationships and their evolution and changes over their development may shape the internal working models of the patients. How different internal working models may in turn be translated in pathogenic beliefs and schemas, strengthen specific kinds of interpersonal guilt, that's the point, and favor the choice of different testing strategies. In other words, we would like to know if there are testing strategies of this more severe patients that I mentioned before. But this is work that's still to be done, and I don't know if we'll succeed in doing that. Anyway, I conclude. There is no talk about integration. There is only an approach, a dialogue, maybe something is useful for both sides, and maybe also the schemas that the callers talk of can have interest. The big problem is the problem that Marvin Goldfried, as integrative psychologist, theorist, emphasized. We have a lot of theories, too many theories.
Yeah.
It's too easy to say, I had a former training in philosophy of science, it's too easy to say, to quote Kuhn, we are still in a pre-paradigmatic phase of development. That's too easy.
Oh.
That's too easy. That's just descriptive. And Martin Goldfried, in this last article recently appeared, tries to individuate some critical situations why we don't do it. Because the big issue is that not everything goes. Otherwise, it's a disaster. We can't agree on this, that there are hundreds of theories and everything goes. We cannot demonstrate the superiority of any theory, this says the research, on other theories. But that doesn't mean that everything goes. To do this, to explain why not everything goes, we have to go deeper. And maybe because everything is changing, this is my impression, and the world became fluid, this psychotherapeutic world, siamo in stallo. And I think that maybe we have to change strategies and change also questions we put ourselves. Sometimes theoreticians and experts on attachment say, we don't have any results as regards psychopathology. Is it because we have the wrong questions, or is it because is only a mediating factor and no direct relationship between attachment and psychopathology. This is the kind of moments when you have to go in. Thank you.
Is there some question before the coffee break? Comments or questions? The coffee break is too important. So 20 minutes.